Hi, I'm Jeff Adezato from SMB Consultants, and we're specialist cloud integrators for the retail, wholesale, and hospitality industries.
G'day folks, my name's Clinton Cowan from TradiePad, and we too are specialist cloud integrators, but for the trades and field services sector.
So Clinton, we thought we'd get together today to talk a little bit about the industry and the large range of apps that are in the marketplace and some of the problems that bookkeepers and accountants today are faced with. So what are some of the challenges that you see bookkeepers and accountants dealing with today?
Well, I think a lot's changing. The whole technology space for bookkeepers and accountants has evolved a lot from the traditional days of just managing the basic accounting software. A little bit of background on me, I'm a plumber by trade, and I set up iPads and apps to run the plumbing business that I was involved in years ago when iPads were first released. And it had a profound effect on the way that the business operated. And that's what led me to start TradiePad. And I discovered very early on that the stuff that we were doing with putting technology, apps and devices into people's businesses really worked in closely with what bookkeepers and accountants were doing with the likes of Xero, and the stuff that we were putting in place into these people's businesses were collecting data and information that's feeding into Xero and I guess having a big impact on the quality of that information and the speed at which the data and the quality at which the data is going in. So one of the big changes, I guess, is that bookkeepers and accountants are, I guess, changing the services that they're providing. It's not just the old days of compliance. There's now a lot more questions being asked around what solutions can I use to work in with Xero? You've set me up with Xero, what do I do now?
Yeah, and I guess that's how we came to get to know each other. Is I got into this in a similar fashion. I worked in retail all my life. And I really understood, I ran a retail business here in Sydney, and we put in a point of sale out of our own need to run that business more effectively. And we realized that there was a whole stack of apps that were needed to run a business. And as cloud technology became more accessible, we understood that there was a relationship between how the front of house operational applications worked with the accounting file. But I guess what we've seen is that there's just been such an accelerated growth of apps that have come out onto the market that bookkeepers and accountants today have these lists of their clients that are now mature Xero users. They're happy, they're in the cloud, they're getting a lot of benefit, but they're actually coming to them now for advice and for guidance on what apps they should be using.
Yeah, and so what options do you think the bookkeepers and accountants have available to them when they get asked that question?
Yeah, well, what I really see is that we call it the 3 R's. So the first one is research and recommend. As a financial advisor, you want to help your client. I mean, you've got a relationship with them, and they're coming to you for advice. And it's, the first thing you would do is maybe go to a marketplace and look at all the selection that's out there. Yeah. And then you might turn to your peers or your colleagues or maybe to a Facebook group to try to acquire some knowledge and information and experience as to what has worked for other people. Mm-hmm. The problem I find with that is that there's too many people that are searching for that one app that they can just sort of, I guess, work within one industry category. And what's your experience been with having one app that can service an entire industry?
The holy grail. One thing that does it all. Unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. There's too many variances with people's businesses, size, level of technology adoption and tech savviness, operational models, and I guess where the business wants to go in the future. So there's a whole heap of things that contribute to the suitability of a solution. And there are a range of solutions because they all do different things. If an app developer created the same thing as somebody else, then what's the point? So they're all creating these different tools that behave slightly differently and offer different features and suit different businesses. So having that one size fits all approach, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I guess that our two businesses our point of difference is that we're agnostic. We both of us could never be in a position to be trusted consultants if we were only recommending one solution to our clients.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I guess the other thing is bookkeepers and accountants we see them feeling very apprehensive about making a recommendation that falls short or doesn't work because there's a huge accountability issue there, isn't there, if they recommend something that doesn't work?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of times you're really holding a business in your hands. You make the wrong recommendation, that can have a very detrimental effect to the way that the business operates, and can be a very time-consuming process to go down the wrong path and then have to come back to the drawing board and start all over again. It's not an ideal situation.
Yeah, so then we get on to the second R, which is upskill and resource. And so upskilling and resource is certainly something that every firm should explore. I mean, there are many apps out there that they may use within their own practice. A good example of this might be Receipt Bank. They might use it in their own practice, and they might become comfortable enough to recommend it to their clients. And there's certainly a stack of apps that I think that bookkeepers and accountants should explore. Ones that fall around their footprint or their expertise, like benchmark reporting. They could recommend Futrili or Spotlight or Fathom. They could have digital marketing apps like Boma if they wanted to get into that space. But I guess there's some confusion over apps that they would recommend versus all the operational apps that require some experience or knowledge in respected verticals. How do you feel about those apps?
Well, I mean, we're running businesses that focus on a specific vertical, and talking about the trades and field services, there's enough solutions in there for me to worry about without having to look at all of these other things that are out there that suit retail and hospitality and professional services and all of these things. So I think having a specialty focus is really important, and having the commitment, I suppose, to that particular vertical, and making sure that you're only working with best of breed solutions that work for that particular vertical is really critical. Yeah,
I've always joked around that I've never wanted to sort of be the expert in your space because I know nothing about your field.
Same.
Yeah. So I guess, for a firm that is wanting to upskill and add additional resources, what are some of the things that they're going to have to consider if they go down that path?
I think a big one is commitment. If you are going to go down that path, having a dedicated team or having a dedicated person that focuses just on that is really important, because I'm sure you found the same when you first start the business. You're wearing a lot of hats and you can only do one thing at a time, and there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle to take care of. So training and setup and configuration is the first part, but then support becomes a really important factor as well, because we're introducing new things into a business that it's not just a matter of setting it up and handing it over and say, here you go away and use this. There can be ongoing education required. There can be questions about, you're potentially changing workflows within a business. So questions about support and questions about modifications or tweaks to the system. So having someone that can focus on that particular service of the business is really, really important.
Yeah, and I suppose it's not an all or nothing. I suppose firms can go out there and they can sort of choose the ones that they're comfortable with. But then what if a firm really still wants to be able to recommend apps but not necessarily do some of the setup and training?
Yeah, I guess that leads us into the third R.
I guess it does. So the third R is build a relationship. And I guess this is the thing that we think is most exciting, because building a relationship with a cloud integrator means that you can be in a position to recommend apps to your clients and engage with them and uncover opportunities and remain a part of a financial advisor to that client, but not wear the burden of and the responsibility of setting up and supporting and training the clients. So tell us a little bit about how a relationship works between cloud integrators and bookkeepers and accountants.
I guess a good analogy for it would be it's kind of like the GP specialist relationship. We talk about a medical practice. So the GP will deal with the client initially and listen to the issues and listen to the symptoms, and then send the client on the particular path to talk to the specialists in that particular area, but always working together as a team. The GP and the specialist, they work together in synergy. So it's a similar kind of situation in this case. Whenever we have a bookkeeper or an accountant that we work with that introduces a client to us, we involve them in the discussion from the get-go. So we do, I know you do a very similar process. We do an initial business assessment called a scoping session, and we have the bookkeeper or accountant involved in that session and part of the discussion, because a lot of the things that we talk about and the processes that we discuss involve the accountant or the bookkeeper and involve the financial software. So having them involved from that starting point is a really, really critical part of the process, and really demonstrates how we're working together as a team with to serve the client to the best possible standard.
Yeah, and I suppose it's like, to use that same analogy, it's like a lot of the times you can diagnose what the problem is, but they weren't really fully across what the recommendation or what the prescription is to solve the problem. Right, yeah. And so what I've found is, when we go through the process of a business assessment or a scoping session, the bookkeeper and accountant knows that they can hand off to a consultant that is specialized in that area. They're asking questions, they're generating a report that's going to help them understand what are the solutions that are on offer and how are these solutions going to solve the problems in the business. And the client is feeling like they've got both experts discussing their business together around one table, and they're discussing solutions that they're no longer having to be the messenger in between two different consultants.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are specialist cloud integrators that focus on specific solutions or specific requirements and business processes, just like there are specialists in the medical area.
That's right. And I guess, it's impractical to think that you can be an expert across everything. There's just too many apps out there today. Even we are not experts on everything. We are very critical about, how many apps that we support. And I guess the basis that we use, and probably the same goes for you, is that we only really recommend and support products that we have hands-on experience using. Yeah. And I think that is a big point of difference, because a lot of feedback that we get is, we get these clients that we call them Franken apps, where they've gone out and they've researched and they've acquired software packages and they've set them up to the best of their ability, but they just don't have the hands-on experience to know the best way to set them up, and they really need somebody to come through and help them iron out what's working and what isn't working, and fix the connections and introduce the correct workflows so that they can leverage the software and use it in the best way that's going to show them the best benefits.
Use it to its potential.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So how does a bookkeeper and accountant that's interested in getting started with a partnership, how do they get started?
Well, we've been talking about these business assessments or scoping sessions, so that's a big part of it. I guess initially it's identifying that there is an opportunity, that there's a client that needs some assistance. Sometimes the clients don't know that there's a problem, and so it's maybe having a look at the operational methodologies and whether there's any bottlenecks in the business, and just highlighting those to the business owner and saying, did you know that there are solutions for this? There are things that can help make your business more enjoyable, make it easier to run, use some technology. So I guess getting the business owner thinking the right way and ready for some change, ready for something new, is a good starting point. Planting a seed, I suppose, is a good starting point. And then connecting with some cloud integrators that can specialise in that particular vertical that your clients are in, whether it's trades and services or it's retail hospitality, it might be inventory, it might be professional services, whatever it might be. But identifying some cloud integrators that you can work with, or that they can work with, that can work as a team. And then I guess it's bringing everybody together and being involved in that session, like I mentioned.
And what could they expect in terms of, what type of process would they expect after the solution's been put in, or maybe during the process in terms of that partnership?
I think being involved is a really important part. We put a big emphasis on if we have a bookkeeper or an accountant involved with a client, we get them involved in the training sessions, in whichever sessions are required, so that we're making sure that the data that's being collected is being fed through to the right places within Xero, because that's what a lot of this is about, is data collection and making sure that we're making that flow of information as seamless and as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that we do that maybe not a lot of people know, is we have a discussion around data mapping to GL accounts. And that's not a discussion that we would have had 5 years ago, but it's such a prominent part. And we're trying to address how that data maps to the financial package in the planning process. And typically, it's always been done retroactively. A business owner has gone out, set up their systems, and once they've been live with the system, handballed it over to their accountant. And every accountant has been in that situation where they've had to go in and try to fix things. And we're trying to be, I guess, premeditate, and be a bit more savvy in terms of how we actually set that up from the very beginning. And we really rely on the bookkeeper and accountant's advice to us, so it's reciprocal. Yeah. I think there's also, from our point of view, trying to understand what's in it for the bookkeeper and accountant? Are they looking to promote advisory services to their clients as well? What services do they provide that are complementary that we can also help promote?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially with the types of clients that we're working with, tradies, a lot of wives are doing the books and they don't necessarily enjoy doing it. It's just one of those things that happens. Your partner does the books, you start your business, and away you go. So we find that we're introducing a lot of bookkeepers to our clients, bookkeepers and accountants to our clients to provide services. So once we develop that relationship with our client, then we understand what the bookkeepers and accountants services are, so we can then introduce it to clients that are looking for somebody.
And talk to me about, I guess, the next steps for bookkeepers and accountants. Where is this all headed? And I guess, what sort of things are bookkeepers and accountants sort of considering in terms of their journey?
Like anything in business, I think planning is a good starting point. Planning out what you want your strategy to be, what you want your technology strategy to be for the practice, whether or not you want to follow that first R of research and recommend, the second R of upskilling and adding the resources, or the third R of exploring that relationship. Once you've got that plan in place, then it's a matter of working out, okay, if we're going to upskill and resource, what do we need to do? If we're going to develop that relationship, start looking for some cloud integrators that specialise in the particular types of clients that you work with, and reach out to them and start the conversation. It's all about communication and conversation and developing what that relationship's going to look like.
Yeah, there's certainly, I think, a lot of firms that are sort of trying to understand which direction that they should head. Should they become an app advisor and start to be able to offer that within their practice, or do they develop strategic partnerships, that still allow them to recommend apps but not carry the burden and the responsibility of setup and training?
Yeah.
But I guess, that's just all part of the evolution. I think that business owners and in general are going to continue to go to their bookkeeper and accountant for advice. It's just how does the bookkeeper and accountant offer that to their client? And that's what they need to work out. And certainly, using the analogy of the GP and the specialist, if they can develop a good, intricate and good relationships with specialist partners, they will be able to offer a better end service to their clients.
Yeah, and I think it also means that they can be confident with that discussion that they're having with the client, that they know that they can service the needs and the wants of that business.
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting topic, and it's been great having a chat with you as always. We always tend to catch up with each other and discuss things that are relevant and in talking about the direction of where things are headed.
Yeah.
It's been really good chatting to you, Clinton.
Thanks
very much.
Cheers, mate.